let's just sew whatever. Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to make the Could I Be Any Clearer Staidum bag into a bag that has glitter in it too. So for this bag, I cut out two of the pocket. One of them out of jelly vinyl and then one out of my clear vinyl. I think I second guessed adding tape here. Yeah, okay. So that is going to be basically an overlay over my finished zipper pocket. So I'm folding down the top raw edge and I'm kind of debating how I want to do it. So I'm going to add my zipper first to the jelly as instructed in the pattern. And then for the clear vinyl pocket, I'll be folding over that top raw edge. We're going to sew it down in a U shape around the raw edges. And you want to make sure you're using a stitch length that's a little bit smaller than your glitter particles. So like I used a 4.5 and it was a little bit big for my glitter. But if you're doing 2 lines of stitching, you should be okay, because you've got double the amount of protection to keep those in place. So sewing down the zipper, I'm going to open it and top stitch. And I purchased my glitter from Michael's. Well, I made my husband go buy it, but still. I am looking into like custom glitter blends though, and like custom shapes. I think that would be so fun. So keep an eye out on my website for that. Because I just thought these like giant, we have so much vinyl, and the jelly and the clear has become such a popular thing that I just thought, well, how much fun would it be if you had a bunch of clear, you didn't have anything with a print, but you made it a themed bag with the amount of glitter you used. I don't know, I just like the idea of that. So I am adding a name tag to the front of the bag. I'm using these leather labels that I purchased from Heartwood and Hide. Jade and Chris are wonderful humans and wonderful to work with on getting your designs made. They do have a really long wait list, so keep that in mind. It's always best to have like an idea of what you're wanting before you reach out via email. Although they do help you even make a logo, they're incredible. So then you're going to sew around your nameplate, name tag, whatever, and tie off your ends. You could add this to any other part of the bag as well. I just thought this was so cute. And sew that in place. And on my machine, what is it, Dorothy? She had a gift for me. Oh, another gift for me? Oh, thank you so much. On my machine, I do not have a needle positioner.
A rocket ship house.
A rocket ship house?
Please?
Should we go make one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like that.
I don't have a needle positioner, so I have to use the reverse lever and my turn wheel to place my needle exactly where I would like it to. And honestly, I prefer that. But if you have a needle positioner, I feel like you kind of learn to make that work. So I'm pulling my threads to the back, and I should have tied them off closer to the end of the vinyl, and I really didn't. It is what it is. But I did tie off my threads. Sometimes I just pull them to the back and then I don't tie them off, but you should tie them off because they could come loose. You just never know. And then I was like, oh, I'll tie them all together at once. No, you should just do 2 at a time. Just lazy, y'all. Nope, I'm not allowed to call myself lazy. I am time deficient. Yes. All right, so there's that. And then, like I mentioned earlier, we're going to fold down that top raw edge. I recently made a Peekaboo beauty bag into a shaker bag as well. So I might have another method of doing this where you cut like a liner piece that's 3/8 of an inch shorter. And when you install your zipper and fold it over, you would overlap that backing piece. That way there isn't quite so much bulk. But for this bag, it really didn't make any kind of a difference. So there you can see, we're just going to line it up to that top stitched edge of our zipper already. I'm just going to use clips to help me hold that down. You could use double-sided tape, but it's very likely you would see it. So I'm just back stitching to hold those layers together, going very slowly around the curve, making sure those pieces don't shift. And I currently am going to be leaving the very top edge just completely unsewn so that we can stick all the glitter in there. I don't think you have to use like super big chunky pieces of glitter like I did. You could use a mix. I know a lot of people used to make tumblers, like my friend Brittany, and she used like a really fine mix and a really chunky mix, and it looks really cool. I don't know that you would want to include any kind of liquid since this isn't completely tight, like it's not airtight, the stitches, you know, so it's definitely not liquid tight. If that makes sense. I have a pearlescent glitter and then just like a silver holographic glitter, and I'm going to add a mixture of both. And I don't know that there is such thing as too much, honestly. I do like the bigger glitter particles because I feel like you're less likely to make a mess. Like, they're easier to clean up. They're not all over the place. But later on in the video, I also add some to my side panel on the bag, so that's kind of fun. So from stitch line to stitch line, we're just going to encapsulate the glitter.
My finger hurts.
Oh.
And yet.
You hurt your finger on snips?
Yeah.
Let me see.
Okay.
They're okay. Let me see.
Cut it in Owie.
It's literally a piece of hair on your finger, Dorothy. You didn't cut yourself.
Oh, yeah.
That's why I give her the curved snips. So there you can see, it's so fun. It's full of glitter. It's the best. So it's the little things. So now we're going to move on to the gusset of the bag after we attach the front pocket. I'm so sorry. So I'm using a ruler to line up the front pocket according to the pattern directions. If you followed my initial video, pretty much everything is the same, except I'm now going to be adding a second layer to the gusset and the zipper panel so that it becomes a little bit sturdier along those areas. The binding does help quite a bit, but I just feel like it's so thin without that little bit of excess along those areas. So I just really want to be careful to line up that pocket so it's nice and straight. you are putting the raw edge down with right sides down, so wrong side facing up, and then you sew along the zipper in a rectangle. You could choose to just do one line and do back and forth back stitching, but I think the structure and stability of a square is nice, or a rectangle. And then when you look on the back side, since it's clear, you'll see a nice finished rectangle. So I like to set this down since it's taped in place and just make sure that everything sits nicely. It lines up nicely along the bottom edge so that it's nice and straight. And if not, I'll just kind of readjust a little bit as needed. And then I'm checking to make sure it's centered and that it's about 2 inches in from each edge. So once I've got that in place, I'll make sure to start at the bottom corner where my zipper pull isn't, so that I know I've got a ways to go before my zipper might be in the way. Make sure that your zipper pull is not in the way. Come to the edge of that zipper tab, and then I just do like 1 stitch forward and complete that long skinny rectangle. It's funny, as I'm watching this video, I'm actually soaking those nails off. It's been so long since I recorded this. But removing your nail polish, gel tips, etc., it's the perfect time to do a voiceover, even though you're sick of doing voiceovers. So I've got my threads all snipped, and then I can lay that down and just make sure it's pressed in place nice and straight along the bottom edge. Look at that fun glitter packet. It's so fun. I used some polymer clay sprinkles on a bag, and they're not quite as effective and fun as the glitter. The glitter is so lightweight that it will like stay up higher on a pocket, and the polymer clay just kind of sinks to the bottom. So still fun, and the method of doing it is still the same. You could also use binding around this pocket if you wanted to have an accented finished edge instead of a raw edge, but I don't think it's that serious. I don't recall if I did 2 rows of stitching around the pocket or not. I may have just done the 1. We're about to find out. Oh, I did 2. So I did about 1/4 of an inch from the outside edge, and then I went back around at 1/8 of an inch from the outside edge. So I've got 3 rows of stitching holding that glitter in. It's not coming out ever. The ghost fabric is so cute. I'm glad y'all love it. I was worried when I ordered it. I was like, well, I'm gonna be buried with this. That's fine. You could even make like a little glitter shaker keychain if you wanted, or like attach it to a tassel situation. It could be so fun. They're just simple little projects that bring you as the maker a lot of joy, and someone as the buyer a lot of joy as well. All right, so here I am working on the top gusset. I've got my handle ready to go, and then this is the jelly vinyl. Did I use 2 layers on this portion? Now I can't remember. I like to add 2 zipper pulls to my zipper, and then I'm pressing the right side of my zipper to the right side of my fabric. Okay, I guess I didn't add a second layer, but I wish that I had, because the handle is quite sturdy, and the vinyl that I used, while it's not not sturdy, it's not the sturdiest, you know, just that one layer of jelly. It's not super strong. So you want to make sure you sew that down at 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, and then press that seam so it's sitting nicely on top of itself. And then just fold slowly as you go. So as you can see, I will press a couple of inches and stitch and then continue on. That way you don't have to make sure that everything is sitting nicely at once. That's a big undertaking, you know? We can't have that kind of responsibility. Just take a little bit at a time. And then we're going to move on to the wider portion of the gusset. There are 2 different sizes for that zipper panel because one of the zipper panels gets the handle attached to it. I'm just using 1 inch wide webbing. I decided not to do the jelly vinyl handle overlay. I didn't want to cover up my fun webbing. If you've got like really lame webbing colors, yeah, definitely cover it up. But man, these are way too fun for that. That template shop currently sells templates for this pattern, and I really need to buy some because Jenny has also, I don't know if she filmed a tutorial, but she has made one that is not clear. You could just make it out of any fabric. Just make sure to add 2 layers. So that's fun. So now I'm adding 1 inch wide D-rings next to the zipper, not over the zipper. Not over, next to. There you go. Yep, now you're listening. I am leaving about 3/8 to 1/2 inch of the webbing inside of my seam allowance so that it's not so floppy. And like I said, I'm using 2 layers of vinyl on the gusset, so that is why it's okay to have all this raw edge stuff. Because I'm going to end up covering it with that second layer. So just make sure you trim up all those raw threads. Those extra threads, we're not going to need those to dirty up our gusset. It's a dirty gusset. And then I have my ruler here to make sure that my handle gets placed centered and aligned with the D-rings. You just want to follow those pattern measurements for where everything gets placed. You want it to be right next to the zipper panel, but not on top of. Not the panel, but the zipper itself. Sorry. And then your handle should have a little bit of a 3D effect to it. You don't want it to be flat, you want it to be raised. If you're not a fan of how raised it looks, you could always adjust it a little bit, but keep in mind that the gusset is curved, so the handle's going to sit a little bit different on the finished bag. So trust the process if you can. So yeah. Then I'm making sure my zipper pulls are out of the way so that when I top stitch my webbing down, nothing moves where it shouldn't be. And get as close to that hardware as you can. And then you can sew around in a box, or you could do, or you could also do like an X through that box stitch. And then in the pattern, she mentions that if you would like to, you could add a little section of vinyl underneath that connector to help reinforce it, but that is totally up to you. I felt like my vinyl was strong enough to not need it, but if you're working with maybe just a clear TPU and you know that it's a little bit stretchy, it couldn't hurt to add a little extra. So now I'm just going to trim a little bit of the excess zipper tape, but I don't like to trim all of it. And then it can't hurt to use a lighter to trim that up as well, just to help prevent any fraying over time. It's so cute. I love the perky little handle. All right, so there are my gusset pieces. And now you could choose to kind of reverse this if you wanted and do a clear for your lining. But this method of adding glitter wouldn't work as well then. So I've got my jelly vinyl as the lining, right sides together over that side seam. So I'm just clipping that into place. And you want to follow the same seam allowance guide as written in the original pattern. I think it's 1/2 inch. And you're going to get close to your hardware, but not go through it. This is just a nylon zipper, so I can sew over it. And then once I have the one in place, I'll move on to the other side. Shifting that over. The bottom of your gusset is wider, longer than the top. Nothing should be wider. If it is though, you can always just trim it a little. That's just the seam allowance difference of zipper tapes. Again, make sure that your zipper is pulled in, make sure your D-rings are out of the way from the needle. And then I like to only top stitch my exterior. I'm not sure if I do that in this one or not. Do I top stitch through? No, okay. So that's where I pull my exterior down but leave the lining of it out of the way. This is so I have a little extra wiggle room to flatten the gusset completely. It's a little bit different with the clear jelly, etc., because they have like a surprising amount of stretch to them. So I don't think it would be as big of an issue if you wanted to top stitch through both layers of fabric. So now I'm going to measure down 5 inches from that top edge. Was it 5? Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Well, that's 4. No, 5. Okay. You can do anywhere from 4 or 5 though. And I'm going to mark a line. This is where I'm going to stitch between the 2 layers to cut off the glitter from just like sinking to the bottom. I just want it to be on the sides. And I'm going to cover this with stitching anyway, so I didn't I wasn't worried about using a marking pen. I don't think it would be noticeable. And I'm just doing that on both sides of the exterior only. And then I'm flattening all of those layers together. And I'll use clips to hold it in place. If you're new to my channel, I know I have explained it before, but the difference between the little hair clips and then the glitter clips for me is I want these hair clips to be a lighter hold. It's like when you want something to stay in place, but you don't need it to be so well clipped on that you can't easily just swipe the clip away. So that's one of my favorite reasons for using hair clips, is I can just swipe them away instead of having to like pull them off of the bag. So I'm going really slow to make sure I'm not stretching either of those layers and that everything stays in place. Any little pucker will be pretty obvious. Moving my clip out of the way. And just make sure you're only sewing through those 2 layers. I'm going to clip that away. And here is where I am going to start sewing at those marked lines. So from the 5-inch there to the other side. So I'm going to start on the side I've already sewn down. And I'm just creating like a pocket within the gusset that I'm going to shove glitter into. We're not adding any glitter to the bottom section. If you want to, I say go for it. But we're just going to slowly make sure that those layers don't shift until I get to that other little marked line. And I'm going to pivot and sew across. And now we're going to grab our glitter. Girls, get the glitter, it's time. So those are our open little sections. Yes. So I'm just plopping it in. I would suggest doing one at a time so that you can close off the one, sew that one, and then do the other. I'm pretty sure this is what I did. I hope. Man, what a pain it would have been if I hadn't. And then make sure you do your best not to shake this around until it's closed. I would have suggested using a smaller stitch length. I was using a 5 or a 4.5, and I did have glitter come loose because I kind of thought I was just basting the sides together. So keep that in mind. You can see there's some hefty chunks of glitter. So that's what my lining looks like because it's not top stitched. So again, it's totally up to you if you're not a fan of that somewhat unfinished look. I feel like for this, it would not have been a big deal if I had top stitched through it. There's glitter on my machine after the party. It's for you, Kira. So now I'm lining up the zipper panel and the gusset pieces so that I can snip my centers, because our front's done and our back's done. So it's pretty much just time to put it all together. Something cool that you could do additionally is add another pocket to the other side. If you're not a fan of that top grab handle, in one of my testers, I added these cute little like faux rolled handles into the side seam. But that was when the pattern had a bit different of a shape. So I'm not sure how it would look with this, but it's still cute. So now you can see it shaking around and falling all over my table because my stitch length is way too long. Worth it. And why should I care? Yeah. Okay, so I'm cleaning it up a little bit. Moving it gently, gingerly. So there's my back, there's my front. Here is my spout. Oh yeah, that's right. So I like to add these little backpack hack connectors. I cut these to 1.5 inch wide by 3 inches long. And then I add a 3/4 inch D-ring. I'm gonna add them along the bottom edge. So at that like side corner you can see. And I'm gonna baste it with a stitch, and then I'm gonna rivet through. Something to keep in mind is the amount of stretch in the TPU when you're adding that rivet. So either add a little bit of glue here too, or maybe do a little backer piece. I know like with bag stock patterns, she will sometimes stitch around the connector and add a rivet, and I don't think that's a bad idea either. So if you wanted to do like a little box stitch to hold that connector in place, it would be super cute. But like this is such a small little minimal change that can literally make the bag a completely different functionality. So that's fun. So I'm just going to be adding a little rivet right under that hardware so that it keeps the D-rings from flapping about. I want to keep them from flapping about. Oh God, it's so weird. Sorry, I have gel extensions on and I'm soaking them off. And like they're just now, since I've started this video, 30 minutes ago. Trying to like literally come off anyway. Sorry. Whew. So I'm just setting those rivets off camera. Maybe someday I'll be fancy enough to have like a multi-camera setup, but I doubt it. Stay classy, San Francisco. Is that what they say? Stay sloppy, Sois. I don't know, maybe I've taken that too far. So I'm lining up my center notches, and I'm likely also going to do a quick little basting stitch to keep that in place. Ever since making the Guardian bags where she has you just kind of like do a quick little stitch to keep something in place, I'm like, that's really helpful. That's a great idea. Just make sure that you've got the top at the top and you're going to line your bottom up with the bottom. It is very important. And I'm putting right sides together. And I will be sewing this with my exterior down, not with my gusset down. I mean, right now I'm basting it. I'm doing a little stay stitch. A basting stitch gets removed. You can baste a turkey, but you can't baste a bag. I mean, no, you can, but I'm not 100% sure if there are gusset marking pieces on this pattern, but if there are, make sure you line those up. But I like to start with either the top or the bottom to start easing in those curves. And if things aren't quite fitting properly, you can always use some little relief snips. I just recently heard that if you're making a bag with a gusset, if you don't snip the curve, it's not actually the right size. I was like, oh, I mean, it's been fine, but it makes sense because, like, I don't know, maybe it doesn't make sense and I just wish it does, wish it did, want it to. So I've got that side all clipped together, and I can work on the other side. And it's just a matter of like pinching and clipping. So pinch your curve into place and then clip it so it stays. What a weird sentence. Do you ever think about, like, if you talked about sewing directions out of context, what it would sound like? Is that just me? No, it's all of us. It's gotta be. And once we get that sewn into place, I'm just gonna sew around. I guess I sew around the gusset, not flat. I love that. It's like, if you're watching this, it's like, well, why don't you know? Well, because it's been weeks since I've sewn it. I don't remember. But I know it's so cute. So yeah, I'm going to sew this in the round with the gusset down. It's my haiku for the day. It's not really a haiku. It's just, is it a limerick? If it rhymes just a little bit. My friend Amber at the Crafty Reporter has a really great tip on sewing binding on clear bags. Because the seam allowance doesn't really matter, you could definitely follow it. I believe she sews at like 1/8 of an inch and then adds her binding at 1/4 of an inch and then folds it over the raw edge. So it's like one finished edge, one raw edge of binding. But when she does this, she uses my binding, which does not fray. So keep that in mind with whatever binding you're purchasing. That some can fray over time. Like waterproof canvas strips. Oh, that's right. The bobbin got me. Waterproof canvas strips can fray over time. It's not that big of a deal, but it can be annoying. I also carry waterproof binding, which are smaller, only solids that have like a waterproof finishing on it. It's almost like a waxed canvas, but not quite. It's nice. I like working with it. And the binding that I carry is soft and flexible enough for domestic machines. I'm so sorry about my hair being in the way. Well, I guess the hair's on my head, so my head's in the way. But sometimes for these curves, like, you really just have to get up in there and know that you can see that everything's being sewn together as well as you can. Oh yeah, I think my bobbin messed up again. I was trying to be sly and it bit me in the butt. Oh man, that's pretty bad. That's a bad track record. So now I'm giving my bobbin a pep talk. I'm asking it if I fed it something wrong. Did you not like it? Just taking it out, rethreading it. I'm going to try again. Yeah, there we go. I was like, a smart person would have tested on a scrap piece. There we go. Seems to be working well now. So I'm like, okay. Sweet. So I'm wondering, if I stitch again, is this like perforating it, or are we okay? And I think it's going to be okay. I'm holding onto my threads to make sure that that is 100% not a problem, because industrials do have a tendency to kind of suck that thread in because they're so strong. So you want to overcompensate by holding your threads. It may not look like I hold my threads to start all the time, but that's because I know my machine and I know how much pressure I need to apply average wise to prevent it from happening. So I'm just using my little screwdriver here to help me hold the curves into place and help me hold the fabric down. This is so I don't risk hurting my finger or breaking a nail. When I didn't get my nails done professionally, I didn't care, but now that I've discovered like fancy nail artists, I'm like, well, that's all I want. Like next time I might get Grimace nails, you know, from McDonald's, the Grimace guy. He's just a giant taste bud and I'm kind of obsessed with him. He's just so cute. So just slowly going around the corner. I believe the pattern calls for a 3/8 inch seam allowance, so I'm doing my best to kind of follow it. You could also do like a 1/4 inch seam allowance and then cover more of it with your binding. I am using just a single fold binding, not like the double fold bias tape, but my friend Brittany uses the double fold bias tape. She buys a giant roll of black off of Amazon and that works perfect for her. So there's no right or wrong material that you have to use. It's literally whatever works for you. And for the double fold, like you could use it the same where you just tape on one giant piece instead of like doing one edge and then folding it over and then top stitching again. It's whatever method you prefer. So we're getting close to where we started, and then we'll be adding the binding. I use 3/4 inch wide double-sided tape for adding my binding. The binding is 1 inch wide, so that means that I have total surface area control without it being technically in your stitches. If you place it just right, you wouldn't be sewing through it. And it kind of adds a little more structure as well with that tape, but I love the most that it's not going to shift while I'm sewing. So I'm just taking my scissors and trimming along any uneven edges. I'm not trimming away all of the excess, like I'm not trimming down my seam allowance, I'm just trimming away uneven layers because that will cause our binding to look a little funky. So I'm getting my double-sided tape. I'm going to grab my binding. You're going to want to cut 2 strips that are the same. And I just measure more than needed and clip. And then I don't think I measured my second one, but I don't know that it was enough. If you would like to prevent the short edge of your binding from fraying, you can hit it with a lighter. But this one really doesn't fray much. So I unpeel the tape just a little bit as I go and just get it started. I do hold it somewhat close to my body and use my body to help me hold the bag So if it goes off camera, I do apologize. I still clip it in place so that I know those layers aren't shifting. But like right here, I want to make sure that I'm folding it accurately over the edges and pinching around. So that's why it's off camera. But just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not happening, you know? I'm still clipping it. I'm wondering if I have too many stickers on my sewing machine, because there's like a lot going on. I see people that put stickers on their table, and I love that for them, but I'm worried that that would be too overwhelming and messy for me personally. Because as it is, the one on the throat of my machine, I'm still like, oh crap, is that something I need to, I don't know, it's like clip camouflage. Like, is it a mess or is it just stickers? Nobody knows. Who's gonna know? Nobody's gonna know. Oh my god, my real fingernails are starting to show. I got gel extensions and they were like bulby, like my thumbs. I was like, do my thumbnails really look like that? No, they don't. Sorry for the overshare. And if your thumbnails are bulby, that's okay. They don't look bad. They're just not what I'm used to on my hand. So I was like, what is this? It's like literally a Christmas light off my phalange. All right, we're coming around to the other side. I'm gonna overlap my binding. I fold over that short raw edge so that it's a finished edge, and then finish clipping. There you go. Now you can see it. Just barely. Here we go. And then I like to start near where I'm overlapping so that that doesn't shift, and just do a quick little back stitch and move forward. I like to back stitch over that overlap as well. And I'm sewing about 1/8 of an inch, quarter to 1/8 of an inch from the raw edge of my binding. And you want to try to not go in from your seam allowance too much, but if you do, just make sure you're consistent with that. And I'm pulling up on the corner of my bag as I'm turning it. So I'm not necessarily pushing it flat. I'm pulling it to keep its shape, pulling it up against the bed of my machine. And then just double check that you've caught all the edges of your binding. And then just going to repeat that on the other side. So I'm clipping on the other side now and basting the top edge now that I've got it lined up and centered. And I'm just using that screwdriver to make sure that the edges of my vinyl don't shift. Then I'm going to flip it over and line up the bottom edge now. Looks like this time I'm basting both sides, which really isn't a bad idea. It's your two straightest edges, and now you don't have to worry about those shifting, so you can just focus on the corners and making sure that your zipper pocket lines up with that top edge of the gusset, that joining edge. I think it's been nearly 2 years, maybe it's going on over 2 years since I released a pattern, and I miss it so much. I just haven't had any time to like be creative and think about a new pattern. And there's just so many incredible pattern designers out there now that I'm like, I'm just gonna wait and see what you guys do, because it's incredible. If you have never tried to design a pattern before, it's a lot. And if you don't have like good testers to help you, things like that, it can be just so much. But the math is the most fun part to me, I think. Just like, how will this fit together? How do I deconstruct it? How do I reverse engineer it in my head? It's a lot of fun. Another hard part about it is like there's so many different ways you can make something that it's like, what is the best way to make it? I think Nicole of Sonar and I were kind of chatting about that in the Triskel live that we did together. Make sure you unzip your zippers so that you can easily turn the bag when it's finished. If you're making this bag out of PVC, just make sure that you've got a blow dryer handy to just kind of warm it up to make it a little more malleable, and then turn it. That'll help quite a bit. But otherwise, PVC holds its shape really well. It's just such a thick material. So as you can see, I'm kind of using my elbow to help me turn the bag. And I'm letting the bag keep its shape as I'm turning around. That's going to help your corners sit better because you're not smushing them and forcing them to be something they aren't. You're just kind of supporting them and turning the corner as you go, while using a tool to help you line up those raw edges. And so having a cylinder arm when sewing gussets and such can be helpful because you're not fighting the top of your machine like I am here. I mean, I'm not fighting it. I've been using this machine for 6-7 years, so I know how to maneuver around the corners. But sometimes the mechanisms that put the machine together can be difficult to kind of maneuver around. So I like to add more clips as I go just to prevent my layers from shifting. So sometimes there's like a clip that will just kind of hold things in place, and then there's times where I need clips to like keep it from shifting, you know what I mean? So that's why I've added more clips. Oh, it could have also been that I had glitter coming out. So I was like, here, let's add some more clips to prevent it. And then we're coming up to a part that I've already basted together, so that's nice. I can just be done with it. And then we're going to add our binding. It's just as easy as it was on the other side, if not more so. This bag is super quick because you don't need lining, etc., etc. I think I had just enough binding. Oh no, it's the next bag that I didn't have enough for. And you could always save scraps of binding to interface strap connectors and just reinforce seams. You don't have to throw it away. So you can see now what that binding buddy tape looks like as I'm pressing it into place. I try to leave about 1/4 of an inch on either side. Wait. No, 1/8 of an inch, because it's only 1/4 inch smaller. So yeah, you can see how adding another layer over that zipper gusset would have looked really nice. It also would have made the top of the bag hold a little bit better. Now I feel like I'm moving in slow-mo. So I'm pressing into all those corners, making sure the binding is sitting as close to that edge as it possibly can. You can see how fun the glitter in that pocket is. Pressing those corners. Yeah, right up at that handle, I feel like it wants to like dip in almost. So having that second layer would have been really nice. But otherwise, I'm really happy with the way this one turned out. I think it's so stinking cute. Now I want to try to add like a center divider to a bag, or like a clear zipper pocket inside, just to hold some stuff. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you try to add some glitter to your bag, and I will see you in my next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe and comment and say hi and tell me what your favorite thing about your day was. Okay, bye.